Okay, fearless practitioners, hold on to your hats because we have a rock star guest today. I am so excited to have Hannah Turnbull for us. So I don't want to give out too much goodies. So welcome to the show, Hannah. Tell us everything.
Adrien, it's so good to see you again. And thank you for having me. I know I just had the privilege of getting to do a Nutrition Entrepreneurs DPG happy hour with you, which was so fun, where you just drilled me with questions. And I'm like, all right, podcast time, let's go.
I know. I'm just so excited that I get to keep picking your brain and sharing your knowledge. Before we start picking away, tell us your story. How did you get to be this mogul?
Absolutely. I love that word, by the way, mogul.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I always like to take it back to when I started school. When I went to college, I thought I was going to be an accountant, which is hilarious if you know me at all, because I can't sit still for 1 minute. I can't focus on details, and it's totally not me. But I think I always say, from playing the game of life growing up, I was always in the mindset of like, okay, I have to make like this X amount of money salary. So that means accountant or doctor or lawyer. And so for some reason I was like, I like numbers. I fixated on accounting. And so when I went to school, I went to University of Missouri, and I was like, all right, joining the business school. And I think it was kind of the start of an inkling for me that I knew I wanted to be in business. I just don't know how. And so as I was going through schooling and navigating my own relationship with food and body, I realized that I am actually really interested in nutrition and movement and things like that. And actually at the time, it was from a pretty disordered place, which I feel like we've all been there. A lot of our own struggles are what draws to the field. And so at that time, I was kind of still in it with food and body in a not helpful way. But as I continued to learn and grow, I realized like the only way I wanted to practice was treating eating disorders, working on helping people heal their relationship with food and body. And so I was like, cool, graduation came, and I worked at a hospital for a little bit, which was a really good experience. I know it's kind of a trope that people will say, work at a hospital before you do things, which I don't think you necessarily have to, but I'm glad that I did. And I have a little bit of a background in that clinical, because there's things that come up that I'm like, oh, I remember this from this time. And I can still utilize it to this day. And so I found myself getting like a scratch to do something else. When I was at my clinical job, I stayed there for a year-ish, maybe just short of a year. And I really wanted to move somewhere else. I'd lived in Missouri pretty much my whole life, went to school an hour and a half away from where I grew up. And I was like, cool, Denver sounds great. Like that seems to be the place people are going. And I'm very much flying by the seat of my pants. I'd never been to Denver. All I knew is there's outdoors and mountains, and it was like 10 hours from where I lived in Missouri. And I was like, great, let's go. And so quit my job, didn't have another job lined up. I was like, when I get to Denver, I'll start looking for things, because, when you're in a state that has the jobs, then it's much easier, quote unquote, to get a job. And so I was like, cool, I'll just apply when I have a Denver address. Moved out here. Nobody wanted to hire me. And I was like, what? I can't even believe it. So from there, I was like, all right, I guess I'm going to do this myself. And I had the inkling that I wanted my own private practice. And of course, when I was doing the interviews, I was letting them know this is going to be great to do and then have my private practice on the side. And that's probably why I did not get hired as well, because I kind of, letting them know I'm going to leave you in X amount of time and do my own thing. So that's a pro tip for you all. If you're applying to a treatment center or to work for somebody, if you want your own private practice, just do it. I wouldn't even waste your time with that step.
I love the pro tip. I love it. Just don't share all of the things.
Yes. Just share the things that the treatment center or wherever needs to know that's relevant to them, that's going to help you stay there for a bit, but they don't need to know your future plans. And so when I moved out here, couldn't get a job at a treatment center or anything. That's when I was like, cool, I'm going to have my own private practice, I guess. And at the time I had my blog, which was called Healthy Hanny. I love alliterations. It's now since matured since that, but I really liked writing and just getting the word out about intuitive eating, weight inclusive care, things like that. So I started to see clients in Gosh, I actually started to see a couple before I moved to Denver. So I had a little virtual private practice, but I really hit the ground running when I realized I wasn't going to find a job out here. And so over the last, 4 years at this point, I had my own private practice, got full and overwhelmed. And I was like, oh, I would like a variety in the work. And I think it'd be cool to take somebody under my wing. So I hired my first employee. And then after that, I pretty much have hired people quarterly since. And so we went from Healthy Hanny to Nourished with Hannah, which then got awkward when you hire a team, because it was like Nourished with Hannah and this person and this person. And we're like, all right, Nourished Colorado it is. So we are now Nourished Colorado with 9 of us dietitians, and we are hoping to grow to 13. And that's kind of my trajectory from going to school to be a dietitian up to being a group practice owner.
Oh, I love it. And I love that you were able to kind of, as you said, fly by the seat of your pants, but also just go for it without this like overthinking. Because I hear so many dietitians will think themselves out of a great idea.
Oh my gosh. And I've definitely been there too, but I do think it's a strength of mine of let me just try this thing. And I felt like that at many different points of private practice. Like, let me just see what it's like to get an office space a couple of days a week. Let me just see if I can figure out insurance, because it sounds brilliant. People get to come see me and they can pay $20 out of pocket for their copay. Like, I've got to figure this out. And I've always been someone to figure it out, but I also can be an overthinker at times. So I get that, but you're right. It paralyzes people from taking action.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I love that you didn't, and I'm totally making generalization, but it sounds like you didn't make it anything like a big deal. Like, oh, let's just figure it out. Is that kind of like a personal quality? Is it something learned? Like, what have you kind of noticed that?
I love that you're reflecting that to me, because I haven't really thought about it. And now that you say it, I always take pride in being a doer of an issue comes up or an idea comes up and I'm just going to start it. But it's not anything that I've ever felt like I've, what's the word? Kind of escalated or been like, oh my God, this is a huge deal and I need people to know, or like, this is an undertaking that I'm overwhelmed by. Not that I've never been overwhelmed, but I would say I'm pretty chill, and I'm like, oh, I need to figure out insurance. Cool. I'm going to figure out insurance. And then I do. And then I look back and I'm like, how did I do this? So then I had to backtrack because I'm trying to help other people take insurance at their practices. And it's a journey.
Yeah. But I just really appreciate how you went into all of this. So like, cool, it's not that big of a deal. And I think that helps a lot of us be able to take a breath and like, if you try and you fail, cool beans, you tried. And what's the worst that could happen? I think when you're comfortable with like counseling patients, I used to always tell my patients, like, what's the worst that could happen? You're not going to catch on fire from trying a marshmallow. Like, just try.
Unless you're like trying to roast the marshmallow and make s'mores and you get too close to the fire, and then, something could happen, but marshmallows are delicious and we want you to be able to eat them. Yeah. And it's so easy, Adrien, for me to talk about it now, being in it, like having a successful group practice and the other endeavors that I do. But I guarantee at the time I was probably a little bit less chilled, but overall my demeanor is, what is the worst thing that can happen? And I'm always saying that to people, because it's truly like, okay, you want to have a private practice? What's the worst thing that can happen? You can't get clients? That's not a failure. We just need to figure out what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, I love that. So you mentioned other endeavors. Tell me more. I need to know.
Yes. So I like to always take a pause in my story, and the first few minutes of the pod, just rambling and getting it out. And so I feel like that's kind of how my trajectory's been since graduating college. And even in college, it was very like, I did this and then this and then this, and it still continues. And I'm actually kind of hitting a point where I'm trying to slow down and coast a little bit, but that's not what you asked. So I'm going to change gears a bit. And so with the experience of having a group practice, a few years ago, I had some colleagues start reaching out to me and be like, you have a group practice. How are you doing this? And there wasn't a ton of resources at the time. And I feel like there still isn't. You and I might be like the main group practice support in our space. And so I was like, okay, I can do supervision for this person, and it's not going to be quite clinical supervision where I'm giving them feedback on client cases, but I can give them feedback on their business. That's super cool. And so that kind of grew word of mouth over the last couple of years. And then I was like, okay, this can't really be part of my group practice anymore because it's a completely different offering. And so I decided to open a consulting firm called Values Driven Group, which got its LLC earlier this year in January.
Woo-hoo.
And honestly, it has made me feel like such a boss having established this and now having a separate business of like, yeah, this is something I do. It's not like, oh, it's just something I'll figure out. Like, I know how to help people. I know what they're needing, and being in the trenches with them by also being a group practice owner, I feel like is just such a special experience to have from a business coach, because a lot of folks, which, people have different opinions about, but I'm a big fan of people who are doing coaching should have a business that reflects the coaching they're doing around, or else it doesn't make sense. And like in the trenches with you, doing it as well, maybe one step ahead of you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, preach. I am a huge component. If you are looking for a business coach, check their track record, do your due diligence. And every coach has different ways of looking at things, offering things. And so I love that you're able to share your experiences. And also, I think it mimics kind of that patient work too. Like, you're able to empathize, like, yeah, I get it. I totally have had those days. You're just like, screw it, table flip. I'm packing up. I'm going to go and do my backup career.
Absolutely. I love a good table flip. So yeah. And so I opened the consulting firm, Values Driven Group, where I do group practice business coaching. I do insurance consulting as well. And then I randomly got the niche of helping therapy group practices hire dietitians as well. So, because we know the just beautiful relationship that comes with nutrition and therapeutic work. And a lot of therapists aren't aware of the scope of a dietitian being helpful around food and mental health. And so it's been really fun and almost like a act of advocacy for our field of, here's how you hire a dietitian. These are all the things they can do. And just empowering other clinicians to be able to have a nutrition sector of their group. And so that's been very cool to help people build that out.
Oh, I love that. And it's so interesting, like therapists, when you start to really go into the neurochemistry and the biochemistry of food, they're like, oh, well, that makes sense why they're really stuck in that depression, or like, oh, that makes sense why their SSRIs aren't working. Like, being able to really help them unlock that is so fun.
Absolutely. And it's like an interesting usage of their brains too. It's like a scientific component. And then also, of course, eating disorder dietitians at a therapy group practice just totally makes sense. And what's been cool about that is, there's therapy group practices that don't treat eating disorders, but eating disorders come through their door. We know how prevalent it is. And so it's been fun to be able to train the team and the folks to understand how to look for these things, and then getting an eating disorder dietitian on the team. So
that's
advocacy
awesome.
all around. Yes.
I love it. So it sounds, because you've got this other piece of your business, or a new business, does it feel like you're in a coasting mode, or does it feel like you're still grinding?
That's a really good question. And what I'm kind of coming to realize, because just to circle back for my own group practice, I don't even think that's quite coasting yet, because our goal is to get up to 13 dietitians, me, the director, 2 supervisors, and then 5 dietitians under each supervisor. And that's kind of going to be our cap for group practice. That feels really good. Our whole team's on board for our mission and like getting there. And so that one's not quite coasting yet. And I think with my business consulting, it's also technically not coasting, but what I'm realizing, and I'm sure through your entrepreneur journey too, you've realized the sky is the limit. We can literally do fucking anything. And so I'm always trying to figure out, how do I pace myself so that I don't keep face planting on the ground?
Yeah.
I'm in and out of face planting.
Totally, because it truly is like you're like, oh, well, let's do this and this and this and this. And it's so easy for, I think, entrepreneurs to have that shiny object syndrome
Oh
and
yeah.
to like keep it back in. I'm like, okay, this is the group practice goal. This is the consulting goal. Okay, come on, kittens, come on. And so it makes sense. And I love that you guys have a very clear goal and for each of the puzzle pieces. And then it's just like, okay, one step, one step, one step. And that's the hard part because it gets exciting and you just like get so excited. You want to do it all and you want to do it tomorrow.
Oh my gosh. Yes. You wanted to have done it already yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's such a fine balance too. And you kind of have to go through those years of grinding and being like, all right, we're going to keep doing it. We're building this thing. And then when you're still building and getting to that point of, okay, I have so many different projects right now. This sounds really cool, but I actually have to say no to it. And these are my primary focuses. That's kind of the point I'm landing at right now. Also, I love that you said kittens and like kind of bringing them in, because I'm always like, I got to corral the cats. Like, we got to get this shit in order. And also with the goals that I have for Nourish Colorado and Values Driven Group, I had no idea about those goals. I had no idea I was going to be a business coach until, people started asking if I did that. And the answer is like, yes, I will figure out how to do that and be that for you. So just with so much opportunity and having things figured out and knowing what I want now, it's like, I need a moment of pause and slowing down so I can gear up again soon. Because I've just been in and out of the grind for so long. And I know we are always trying to preach self-care, boundaries, work-life balance, but I truly think there's a time where we do have to grind. And I like to be honest with people about that, because if we're telling people, self-care, you don't need to grind, it's a little bit of misleading, because we have had to grind at different times in our businesses.
Mm-hmm. Oh, totally. And I like how I like to think of it as seasons. So we have there's seasons of life, and sometimes we are just in it. Sometimes you can coast. Sometimes it's for creativity. But what I wanted to touch on is you're not starting, but it sounds like you're able to say no to things. And really thinking about, okay, is this in alignment with this company's goal? Or if it's not, I need to say no, even though like I really, 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 really want to, because it's sparkly and shiny and super cool. But I have to say no in order to keep my sanity.
Yeah. And I've also realized that no can be not right now.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be a no forever. And I'm constantly battling FOMO of like wanting to be a part of things. And that is so shiny and cool. And why am I not already doing that? And I think having practices that ground me, which I'm still working on, are the things that keep me rooted in being able to say no.
FOMO is such a real thing in entrepreneur land, because you see all of these other people. And I used to always have to help myself. They say, I can't compare my middle to somebody else's end, or something in that realm of like, okay, this is where I am. And they're doing all the sparkly, cool, shiny things, but this is where I need to be. I can watch the sparkly, shiny things.
Yes. And like the sparkly, shiny things can be for other people, and we can celebrate them in that.
Yeah.
And I always kind of come back to this quote when I'm feeling that way too, of what other people are doing is none of my business. And like it's their business, literally their business. And so it doesn't affect me. I can have FOMO all I want and like want to collaborate, but no, I don't have the capacity, and that's okay. And I just can't right now.
Yeah.
And it's okay to say no.
Yeah, I love that. So what can we expect from you as you're over the next couple of months, years? How can we continue to watch everything that you're doing?
Oh my gosh. You know what is so wild to me? So much can happen in a couple of years, but also at the same time, a couple of years flies by so fast. And it's such a mind fuck of like, what just happened? But look what I built, and where am I going? I think I know where I'm going, and that's kind of scary. So I just want to hold space for one. It's kind of hard to be like, this is what I'm doing the next 2 years, because we don't know what we don't know. But I also do know some of what's happening. So I would say for the rest of the year, that's kind of how I'm trying to take bites of chunks of time. I'm not hiring anybody else at my freaking group practice this year. We're going to focus on our team right now, get everybody filled up, feeling good, connected. That's kind of the goals of Nourish Colorado. We're still working out some system things. You know, there's always a bottleneck that pops up that we need to work on. One of ours right now is still continuously billing and insurance. It's like, when it's good, it's good. When it's bad, it's not great. So that's kind of going to be the focus of Nourish Colorado and kind of gearing up for the new year in a few months. For values driven group, I am actually going to take a couple months pause from taking on new business coaching clients because I'm capped, which is bananas. I know, gosh, I wish I had more time in a day and more energy, but I have realized that I love business coaching. It's one of my favorite things that I do. I love the privilege of getting to see inside of people's businesses, and they share things with you and you're able to provide feedback and more of that coaching and directness, versus when we do nutrition counseling work, it's a bit softer. But I like to be a big presence, and I know you do too. I get that energy from you. And so it's very fun to be like, hey, this is how it is. This is objective. Here's what we're going to do. And I feel like I'm really good at that. But I also am realizing, like, for quality purposes, if I can't do more than 6 people in a week. And so I'm like booked, and that feels pretty good to say. And so I also didn't get to talk about this yet, if you didn't already think I was busy, but I am a co-host of the podcast Weight Inclusive Innovators, which I believe you've had Morgan on.
Oh, yes.
Show.
Oh, yes.
Love her. And so we actually just launched our first business 2-day workshop that is happening this fall, September 29th and 30th. We're stoked. It's going to be a combination of talks and presentations about business, but then applying those concepts in a workshop. So we're very much like, I know everybody's burnt out on virtual and passive presentations, but like, let's do this in a new way and have it feel a little bit more novel by having that interactive piece. So we're really excited to put that on. We have 30 spots available. We've already filled 8 of them. And so yes, we're very excited, and we're going to work hard to get the word out, because we are putting our heart and soul and blood and tears and all the business knowledge that we collectively have together to really be as helpful as we can in 2 days.
I love that. And oh my gosh, speaking my love language of doing workshops, because we all go to those conferences and you learn so much, and then you have to go back into your life and you're like, holy hell, I have no time because I've got to run a business, and you want me to do stuff? No, thanks. So I love a good workshop to carve out the time to do the work.
Oh my gosh. Yes. We feel so passionately about that too. Yeah. Because if you go to a conference and you're listening to things, you're like, this is great. Not only did you take off time from your business to do that, but now you have to catch up on what you missed out on. And then there's always fires coming up. And so we truly believe, and that's what I love about business coaching too, is it's an intentional time frame for people that is probably uncomfortable of, fuck, I have my mind in other places and need to be working on these things too. And you have this 1 hour with me, or you have this 2-day workshop to come and do the damn thing. Because if you're not working on your business, it's not going to move forward.
Oh yeah. Oh, so true. So true. Oh, well, we will definitely have all of that information in our show notes so that people can get their heinies into those little spots. Well, how can we learn and follow everything that you're doing, Hannah? Because I feel that you are just going to continue to rock our world.
Thank you so much. And I would love to connect with people. So you can follow me in many different places, because I'm a multi-passionate entrepreneur, but my main business offerings are at Values Driven Group on Instagram. You can go to my website, valuesdrivengroup.com. And then also on the podcast, Weight Inclusive Innovators, which is Morgan and I's fun, amazing project where we just get to talk shop all day about business. And then we have an Instagram for that as well, Weight Inclusive Innovators. So those are my main things. If you want to check out my group practice, it's Nourished Colorado. You can just Google it and you'll find my amazing team.
Oh, I'm just so excited. We'll have all of those links in our show notes. But before you go, I always ask our guests, what is some action item that our listeners can do to help them move forward in their business, move forward and take action?
Ooh. That is a beautiful question and such an important one. What I'm going to say is I challenge people listening to schedule out in the next month one day off from meetings and clients and work and actually take the time, go to a coffee shop, go get a margarita, whatever feels good to you, and actually write out what the fuck you want in your business and like what you're envisioning, and just let yourself have a little brain dump and give yourself the time to dream and explore and create that vision. Because I don't think we do that enough when we have our heads down and we're just grinding. So, and it's hard to schedule off time, right? When you're trying to build something. And so I want people to be uncomfortable, and I want them to do that. Take that action item, schedule that day off, think about your business. And I would love to hear what comes up.
Oh, I love it. Okay, everybody, go have a margarita or coffee and daydream. Oh, this has been amazing, Hannah. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today.
Thanks for having me, Adrien.